from each other. All we are going to do is just to share. So first I will talk about my presentation. Mine will just to start off is just to do an introduction. I know when it comes to drug, this is something that a lot of young people and everyone knows about it in one way or another, but maybe I can start with the word drug, defining the word drug. So drug mostly can be broadly defined as substances that change the way the brain and body function. So that is the simple way that we can define drug. There are different drugs. We have the drugs that you can get over the counter, that legal, that you can be subscribed by your doctor. And we have also other drugs, because this is a question that usually come up when we talk about drug and drug abuse. Most people look at it when we talk about, when we say we are going to, like today, we're going to talk about issues on drug and substance abuse. People will focus on the illegal drugs and forget that drugs are generally drugs, and any drug can be abused. So talking about any drug can be abused. So what is drug abuse? So drug abuse to us, in simple term, we can define it as excessive use of psychoactive drugs, such as alcohol, pain medication, or illegal drugs. It's just if you use any drug in excess than prescribed by a doctor, that is now you are on drug abuse. Talking about issues of alcohol. Alcohol is also being abused in big numbers right now, more so during this time of COVID-19 and other substance abuse. We have seen a lot of young people getting into drugs. They're using alcohol excess, they're using alcohol in excess, or they're using now a lot of young people. I'm not going to talk about the drug, but a lot of young people have discovered other over-the-counter drugs which can be abused. They have different names. You find some people calling it tap tap, and it depends in the streets and all that, where they go to the chemist and they're able to buy the drugs, but abuse it so that and start abusing it as much as is over-the-counter drug. So drug abuse is mostly more of excessive use of the drug. Another word that comes across when you're talking about issues of alcohol and substance abuse or issues of drug abuse, we have this word dependence. Or what uh, is dependence? What does dependence mean to all of us? Dependence means that uh, this occurs mostly when you need one more drugs to a function. We have seen this is where you can find a person uh, who can't do anything without drugs. Maybe early in the morning when getting on, some people call it eye opener, that they have to open their eyes, so they have to charge their brain or something. They use different words to depend. To define this is where they depend on it. There's some people who can't even talk. They are so silent because now their body depends on it. This is where now your body uh, depends on the drugs to function. Now the alcohol or the substance that you are using has taken control over your body, and now you can't function without the drug. You will always need that drug so that you can continue, so that you can work, so that you can speak, so that you can do or negotiate. Some you have seen some people saying they, and this has come into, some have brought it into sports also. You find some people saying that I can't play well until uh, uh, and I can't. Some people talk about, and some people say that they can't even play football until they are able to take alcohol, or they abuse different kind of drugs. Some use marijuana, some use different kind of drugs, so that they can be able to be to get that strength, or to go and play, or to go to the farm. So dependence at this situation, when most people get to this where their body depend, now this is when we talk about the addiction. And here in addiction, addiction is this state where is a psychological or a physical inability to stop consuming a chemical. This is where now you can't stop. Maybe you find somebody, and this comes in this way. maybe at first when he or she started using the drug, or maybe for example, let's say alcohol. When somebody starts using alcohol, maybe it was in school, maybe it was in a party, maybe it was in an event, you find that this person continues to need that alcohol, even if he or she gets to see a glass of water or a glass of a drink, it feels like I need, the body needs that alcohol. And this is where you find that a lot of people in this state, everything that they do, they have to get alcohol, or because their body is dependent, and now uh, they can't stop using it. This is where when somebody will tell you that if I stop drinking alcohol, I'll be sick. So this is that process where now they're addicted because it's sickness. Most of the time, people have been taking it as not a serious thing, but it's a disease. It's something that at this point, people who get to this state of addiction, the first phase maybe before addiction, it will be fun. You drink, you feel like I'm there. This is a very good moment. But when it gets to addiction, now you are so dependent, and everything that you do, you will need alcohol, or you need that substance that you're addicted to, so that do you can continue with your activities. So these are some of the first issues that when we talk about issues of alcohol and issues of drug abuse comes, and is a disease, is a mental problem that we need to work on it. And uh, most of the time we also talk about misuse, and that is the same, the way I just talked about the misuse of drugs, where now you start using maybe prescribed uh, prescribed medicine, you start using it in a bad way. Now you're starting misusing, and you get into addiction of the alcohol or of the substance that you're addicted to. Then issue, what else, maybe something that I'll just pass through, because as we have different speakers, and we'll be able maybe to get questions later, but there are much we can talk of that. And I know we have heard about different myths. We have talked about different myths, drugs. This happens a lot, more so to young people. This is where now you're told that if you maybe use marijuana, you'll be good in mathematics. It will speed up your mind. And a lot of young people like this myth so much that, oh, marijuana will make you think. But the thing is, we don't look at the beginning. Maybe it will help you think about something. It will make your brain alert, it will make you alert. But in the process of using, now it is going to destroy. And these myths come a lot. There are different myths, and I'll be happy maybe, because this is live, and maybe people can comment at the because myths are from different regions and different areas. If people can comment down at maybe the Facebook Live on different myths that they have heard about alcohol and drugs, so that maybe later we can look at it, because there are different myths, and people use these myths a lot more, so young people, to lure, to influence other young people, like a peer influence, so that they can get into drugs, to tell them that this is the real deal. But the truth is, alcohol and drug abuse is not the real deal. So maybe I can take it back, and so that other uh, speakers can take it on as we continue. But if you have any questions and all that, you can comment as we also wait for uh, our moderator to continue. And also, you can ask different questions on maybe there's a term that you don't understand, or maybe you've not explained it well, and so that we can continue to to explain or tell you more about it. But as we continue, I know a person who is speaking after me from the moderator is Elisha. If he's there, can continue and also talk more about. So as we continue, maybe wait from the moderator, I can talk about different myth. I know some myth that as people talk, they usually say that the person who alcohol is not a problem, that the person is drinking is the problem. I would like to just say that alcohol addiction is a disease, and it's something that we all need to come up. If we have a friend, we have a family member who is addicted or who is into drugs, we have to help them, and maybe help, we need to take them to the hospital, need to help them get services so that they are able to get help. So, and in Kenya right now, if you go to, we did a research first for us as Blue Cross, and we realized that the initial age where people start using alcohol and drugs, most of the young people start from 10 years. So this is where they start use. Use is the first part of maybe as you start taking alcohol, or maybe you've been given to taste. The initial, it starts from the age of 10 years. Most of the time, sometimes we think that this is for the adults, but it affects also our children. And we have seen this being shown on TV. We have seen the Nakada survey also talking about how in Kenya, people who take alcohol are between 10 to 65 years. But now, even the latest, you see that it comes down from 8 to 9. So this is an issue. The prevalence for alcohol use in the country, it's something that is there, and it's something that maybe we need to work together. I don't know, Elisha, if Elisha can take us to the next step and talk about other
points. Can you hear me?
Yes, Elisha.
You can hear me? Sorry, forgive me, I'm in the village, but I hope my network will be able to help facilitate, yeah?
Hello?
Just let me clear.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, I think Mr. Elisha, you will be doing your part with Mr. Gabriel.
Yes.
About counseling. So I think you will be among the last speakers, if I'm not wrong. Because you are doing counseling with Mr. Gabriel. Yeah, with Mr. Gabriel.
So Mr. Gabriel is already in, or? Hello?
We can.
Hello? Time, so let me know what time, so that, okay. But I just, you know, once you want me, I'll be in.
Yeah, I will text you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. Our next speaker will be Mr. Kibe. I don't know if he's in. Kibe Gitau.
Hello.
Yeah, you can put the video on.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just hope I'm clear. I just hope that you can see me now. I switched on my video. Well, thank you very much for this great opportunity to come and talk to our participants. I feel privileged. I feel it's an honor to be called upon to to deliberate, to discuss on issues that are affecting our society. And I feel it is our responsibility. I feel we have a duty, we have a role to play. And I want to thank each and every member who is present this evening for creating time for this, because you and me are required to make a change to make life better for someone. For sure, we have a big problem in our society: alcohol, drug, and substance abuse. And I wish to thank the brains behind this forum, the people who thought it out and came up with the idea of bringing people from different regions together to share, to come and discuss issues affecting our communities. I'm glad to see that, and this is, I really wish to appreciate the technology that we have, because I can see people from across all regions. We have people locally, we have people in the diaspora. Elizabeth Warui, I can see you. And I hope to make maximum use of my time. I don't know how much time I've been allocated, but I presume it should be around 15 to 20 minutes. And just like Brian has said, the first speaker from Blue Cross, we have so many myths, we have so many challenges, we have so many problems associated with the drug and substance abuse. We have a lot of stigma. We have a lot of castigating people who are having issues with alcohol. But first and foremost, I would want to put across and address a concern that whenever you have something that it has a use, we have drug use, it must have an abuse. It must have that misuse concept. What do I mean by this? That in all these, when we talk about alcohol abuse, when we talk about heroin abuse, when we talk about marijuana abuse, it means this drug is being used abnormally. What does that mean? It means that there is that use. And this is what has brought us here when you use it for the wrong purposes. The moderator, kindly, I would request, I had shared my presentation. I don't know whether it will be possible to put it on the screen so that we can all read from the same page and have an understanding of what I'm going to present. Mine will be talking, I'll be talking about the causes of drug use. What are the stages or the processes that, how does drug abuse happen? Because I would like to mention that it doesn't just happen overnight. You don't wake up one morning and you start injecting heroin. You don't wake up one morning and you start using bang. There is a sequence, there is a process, there is a way or how it happens. And I would like us to have a look at the presentation. Kindly, the moderator, I think you can put it on the screen so that we can move forward. Moderator, I'm waiting for you. Kindly let me know when we can move on. But to make a proper use of the time that I have been allocated, I work with Uhai Center. Firstly, my name is Kibe Edwin Gitau, and I'm an addiction psychologist. And I'm working with an organization called Uhai Center. We are based in TeteaKE. It's a consultancy firm that we do training on alcohol and drug abuse. We do prevention measures. We do treatment and rehabilitation. We also do counseling, mentorship, and career guidance, especially amongst our youth. And also, I happen to be the country director, Global Goodwill Ambassadors, that facilitates, that takes care of all humanitarian activities that take place. I'm also a lecturer at Mount Kenya University, and I'm also an author. I have published 2 books with so many research presentations locally and globally. So to move forward, let's look at what has brought us here. I tend to think that the moderator is preparing the slides so that we can have them, so that we can read from the same page. Now, it is our responsibility. Each one of us has a responsibility to help our students, to help our youth realize their potential. And whenever they start using or abusing drugs, then they lose focus and they may not realize their goal. So most of us, each one of us, we have been created differently. We have talents, we have gifts. Once you start using drugs, once you start abusing alcohol, marijuana, like Brian said there earlier, there are so many ways that if you use weed or marijuana, it opens up your brain, which is a fallacy because it is a myth, because what we call marijuana, we refer to it as a focused drugs. It mainly diverts your attention to one particular item. It is our responsibility also to help our students and youth become contributing members of the family, in their families, in the community and society at large. At this juncture, I would want to mention that if we don't address the issue of drug abuse, alcoholism, then the family will be affected. It will be a community problem and society problem, whereby you find this person becomes unproductive and this person becomes a liability. So what is expected of us? Positive engagement of children, young people and adults with their families at the school place, at the schools, workplaces, and the community. I'm just hoping the moderator is getting ready with the slides, although I have already moved on. Then, thank you. I can see something is popping up. Yes. Thank you very much. Now, we have the first slide. That is the organization with which I work. And then my small bio, and then my membership with various organizations. Thank you, moderator, for bringing that up. I am a member of International Society of Substance Use Professionals. I am also an ambassador, Global Goodwill. I'm a member of World Federation Against Drugs, Addiction Prevention Association of Kenya. I'm a certified addiction professional. Yeah, now we can move on. I can see we are reading from the same page. Let's move to the next slide. And I had taken you through our responsibility. We as the people, what is expected of us? We are expected to help our students and youth realize their potential. And let me make a small correction here and say that drug and substances does not only affect the students and youth, but these are the most at-risk persons, and these are the most potential people that we have. These active group is the most active age bracket, and that's why I felt the need to address students and youth. But that does not mean that it does not affect even the adults and the young adults and the elderly. It cuts across both. It doesn't choose. It doesn't select. Now, the next one I had mentioned about helping each one of us to realize our talents, to help our youth to become contributors, unlike when they become liabilities in the family, in the community, and the society. We need to positively engage our children, our young people, adults, everyone to become a productive person in the society. Now, what are the causes of this drug abuse? Where does it stem from? Where does it come from? And moderator, if you could slide up a bit, I'll explain more on the causes. Thank you. We have categorized the causes of drug abuse into five different categories. We have individual factors, whereby you as a person, you as an individual, what can make you become a user, or rather an abuser of a drug. Remember, individual factors could come from the pressures that we have from our social lives. We have school or academic pressure. We have so much expectations. Say, for example, our young ones have been, there's so much expectations from the parents. There's so much expectations from the community. There before, especially when I was in school, I remember when we was joining the university, the entire community had to be brought together, because I have joined the university, and I had to work hard. I had to put much pressure. And just like Brian said, if I'm not well prepared, if I come across that myth that you need weed or marijuana to work, you need weed or marijuana to study, then that's a big problem. We have issues with the curiosity, experimentation, seeking pleasure. All these are, you decide to go because of the curiosity in you. When you see someone who is drunk and he's behaving in a funny way, you tend to think that this is the way to go. We have so many glamorous advertisement on the media, and the youth, the young ones, they tend to think that with this, when you take alcohol or when you smoke a cigarette, then you become fancy. You'll be the hero. You're a celeb, and this is a misconception. When you go to seek for pleasure, we have had so many cases of students or young ones going for bashes, birthday bashes, graduation bashes. We have had issues with when people go for social events, weddings, dowries, and what have you. All these are categorized as individual, you as an individual. When you lack purpose in life, when you see like you feel like you've been defeated in life, you lack purpose, you feel like you're demotivated, and you look for consolation. You seek for support from other substances. Say, for example, when you're down, when you feel like life, there are so many challenges that you're experiencing along the way in life, and you lose purpose, you look or you seek for consolation in substance abuse. This is an individual factor, and this happens especially when you're weak, when you're in denial and you're feeling it hard or difficult to seek for professional help. Social pressure, the peer pressure, the peer attitude, and this one is a big problem. When we talk of peer attitude, when we talk of peer pressure, those are two different things. When we talk of peer attitude, is the attitude of the peers, the people who you work together with, the people you hang out with, your friends are your peers, and you want to fit into their system. Say, for example, Ken has a girlfriend, and for you to fit in that category of girlfriend, and you don't have the guts, you don't have the vibes, you don't have hauna mistari, you go and now seek for two paths, two joints of marijuana, so that you gain courage to be able to address or approach a girl. Or rather, when you're going to look for a job and you don't have the guts, you don't have that self-confidence, you don't have that self-esteem, that's an individual factor. And this can contribute, or rather can cause, to abuse of drugs. The other factor that we are supposed to look into, and this is a big challenge, and I always tend to, rather, I like addressing this because we have so many challenges in our family setups. We have so much domestic violence. We have so many quarrels. We have so many violences. We have so many, and when there is no bond in the families, then we as a society, we are doomed. What do I mean? When there is no bond, when the father cannot talk to the mother in a peaceful manner in the presence of children, there are always fights. That's a big challenge. Parenting styles, what do I mean? I mean, when we parents, we take out our children for an outing, and we make them join the swimming, and they do some other activities, and you're celebrating with alcohol. Then when you go home, you take a few cans and you put it in the fridge. Then you see, this child will grow up knowing that this is socially acceptable. The government has allowed this to happen. If my daddy is taking alcohol, who else can stop me? So we have an issue with parenting. That was just but one example. When you have unstable families, when you have quarrelsome families, when you have broken families, when you have single parenthood, which can be caused by so many other things, when these children, they lack role models, there's a big challenge in family factors. You find there is a gap in this child when there are fights in the family, when there are quarrels in the family, when there is breakup in the family, that is a big challenge. Let's move to the next one, which is the societal factors. I hope somebody is taking notes, and questions are most welcome. Just be ready with your questions. I'll be there to handle them. The other one is about societal factors. Cultural acceptability, alcohol, miraa, cat, tobacco, they are culturally accepted. In fact, in some societies, in some traditions, we have so many rituals in African setup whereby we pay dowries, we go for weddings, We go for rite of passages, circumcisions, and what have you. On all these activities, they are christened, they are solemnized by these substances. So they are acceptable culturally. In my place where I come from, you cannot do dowry, a ritual or an activity without alcohol. You have to take several gourds of alcohol. You have to take so many rolls of tobacco, mbake. In some parts of eastern region, mira is used as a way of paying dowry. How many acreage of mira do you have? Then we have the information saturation. The saturation of information is that it has been accepted. We have a problem with the society, and this is actually where the issue of maids come in. Then moving forward, we have the workplace factors. Let's say, for example, you've been given targets, you've been given deadlines, and you feel you cannot perform within the given period. You're looking for that extra energy. Look, for example, when you have long truck drivers who are driving all the way from Mombasa to Uganda or to other outside the neighboring countries, and they are expected to drive throughout, and they are afraid that they can fall asleep. What do? We know amphetamines, in which Mira, Cat, and Mogoka is categorized as something that will keep this person awake throughout. If you're reading for a card for an exam tomorrow and you want to concentrate to focus on the exam that you have, this is a fallacy, these are made. You tend to use Mira to keep you awake. This is a cause of drug abuse, not knowing that once you start using that substance, it has its effect. Then next, we have the intra and interpersonal conflicts. Within you have conflicts where, like, for example, intra is within you when you don't have self-confidence, when you don't have the guts, when you don't have the confidence, when you feel inadequate, when you feel you cannot fit in the system, when you have stress. That is the fight within you. You feel that you have a vacuum in you. You feel like there is emptiness in you. You feel there is a vacuum in you and you want to fill in this vacuum. All these are causes of drug abuse. Intrapersonal conflicts, interpersonal, from person to the other. That's another factor which causes drug use and abuse. When I'm having quarrels with my daddy and I want to run away from the fact that this is a conflict, instead of facing the problem head on, instead of facing the problem with all the confidence, I look for consolation. I go and smoke 2 joints of marijuana so that I can face my antagonist, or rather the person who is I'm having a conflict with. Let's move on with the initiation. How does it begin? We said it begins with the experimentation. When you see somebody doing it and you find you associate a win-win situation. Like, for example, you did not have the guts to go and approach a girl. I like using that example, especially among the youth, because that's a big problem. You find when somebody is sober, he cannot talk. He doesn't have the confidence, the self-confidence. But when he uses a substance, it gives him or her some courage to do something that he would not have done on his sober mood. That is a big problem. Experimentation. You experiment. When you see, like, I remember when I was in school, when I was in class, in the lower classes, class 5, 6 or thereabout, I remember we used to roll papers. We used to roll papers and put tea leaves, and then you light it and sit like a boss, somebody who has owned the whole world. Yeah, you feel like, yeah, that is experimentation because you've seen it happen somewhere else. And this is where I say this is the society is to blame. The entire society is to blame, because if we didn't have the somebody who was doing it, this child would not have copied it. Although we normally call it as a rite of passage, chamama chababa, but then let it be in a positive way. Let it be something that they're aspiring. I'm aspiring to do something positive for the community. At this juncture, I would want to say, on very rare cases, you'll find children acting like priests or acting like doctors, but they want to act like drunkards they want to act like they are smoking weed. The next step, the next stage is the circumstantial stage. This is where circumstances allow. And I want to mention at this juncture that the circumstances may include when you're going for social activities, like I mentioned, and you introduce alcohol and you introduce mera during burials, during weddings, during circumcisions, during all those, and these people, the young ones, remember, these young ones are people who are very inquisitive. They are very alert. They want to learn from what they are seeing. Circumstances brings problems, social activities. And remember, you have exposed this child. Then the next stage is the casual drug use. You're using casually. You're using it for fun. You're using it because you've met the 4 or 5 of you. You're using it because you have ample time. You're watching football or you're going out for an activity and you have all the time. Little do you know, do you realize that these drugs are slowly changing your biological makeup. They're changing your chemical makeup, rather, not biological, but the chemical makeup in your body. Intensive drug use is the next. At this juncture, the intensive drug use is whereby you have to use. You're using it quite often. You are using it every now and then, and you still don't realize that you have a problem until when you move to the next level, which is compulsive. You must use it to perform. You must use it to be to do small chores or small duties that you used to do comfortably without using the substance there before. Gradually and ultimately, although this is not the ultimate thing, addiction sets in, whereby you'll have tremors, you'll start having wet eyes, you'll start now becoming disoriented, and the moment you drink or the moment you puff or the moment you inject, all that problem subsides. That is now the level. That is the maximum. That is the climax of drug use. Because from there, if you don't drive backwards from where you've come from, you move from addiction to compulsive, you go rolling back, the next you can proceed to is death. If it is not death, we normally say you'll find yourself in 3 institutions. You either find yourself in the hospital, you either find yourself in the mortuary, or you're in the grave. You cannot miss those once you've hit addiction. But the good thing I would want to mention here is addiction is a disease. Although we've seen the sequence, we've seen how it flows, it is a disease. The beauty of it is that recovery, coming back to your senses, is a reality. It can happen. It normally happens. Personally, as I speak to you, I always like confessing, and I say it in broad daylight and in public, that I'm in recovery. Today I'm celebrating my 11th year in recovery. I was in alcohol. My life was had gone down the drain. So what I'm saying is recovery is a reality, and I can assure you that I have seen the fruits of recovery. All you need to do is accept that you have a problem, then have support from people who are around you. Let the person who has issues with addiction come out and be supported by the family members or the significant members who are around that person. Seek professional help, and for sure you're going to get help and your things will come back to normal. Finally, how can you tell early signs and symptoms? How can you tell that so and so is using substances? How can you tell that your girlfriend is using substances? How can you tell your boyfriend is on drugs? Step number 1, and I hope you can read with me, is failure to fulfill major obligations at work, in school, assignments. You cannot do them as you used to do. You have to use a substance for you to perform normally. Remember, I have listed 8 points, but this is just for a highlight. There are so many signs, and I normally say this to my my participants, or rather to my class. I always mention to them that in every situation when you find you are in drugs, or you must have seen some indicators. There must be some signals that you ignored. Your brother must have shown some signs, just like when a vehicle moves on the road, it will indicate the next direction that is about to take. It's only that we become ignorant of the indications that we always receive. So failure to fulfill major obligations at work and in school, order of drugs, it's harufu, and you can smell somebody who has taken alcohol. You can, there are those guys who will come chewing gums. Wengine they'll use the onions. Wengine they'll use strong perfumes. People will start using toothpaste, so that they're trying to cover up. I'm not saying that when you use perfume, you're a drug, you're abusing substances. No. But then there is a way you can tell. If this person has started using so strong, and you can connect with the preoccupation, the next item, preoccupation with drugs. He has been using cover-up of scents or perfumes, and then you relate with the identification with drug culture. You see this guy has started putting on funny dressings, the hair is unkempt, the slogans that he's using. Then there is dramatic change in performance, be it at workplace, be it the academic, be it any type of assignment that he has been given. There is a change. The performance has declined. Or even at some instances, you find this person is becoming hyper, is acting unlike unusual. All these, they links, they are indicators, they are signs that we have somebody who has who started using substances. Physical incoordination, this is whereby this is something that you can physically see. When somebody starts having drooping eyes, when somebody starts speaking in a slurred speech or incoherent, he's not audible, or he's stammering kind of. Somebody who has puffed the glue. If you agree with me, the street children that you have today in Kenya, they no longer sniff glue. No, they are using another one, one item after Ndege. They call it musi. And once that kid puffs that stuff to the lungs, you suddenly see he becomes drowsy, he becomes inactive, he becomes, all right? Yeah. So, and then it leads to slurred speech, difficulties in making judgments, difficulties in making decisions. And in this instance, I would want to ask you people, why do you think that so many alcoholics, drug abusers, they happen to get so many accidents, road accident, workplace accidents? Because the brain has been disoriented, it has been affected, and it is not functioning normally. That physical incoordination, that's why you find that most of them, they are getting those major or minor accidents. Then physical deterioration that amounts to memory lapse. This guy came in last night, he was given food by the wife, or he brought some stuff to the children, but early in the morning he'll start asking, why are you guys not feeding me well? Why are you not? Yesterday I didn't see you, and I didn't see so and so. Memory lapse. And there is a song that was composed, and I really admire the guy who composed this song, when he sang and said that Konijana kuliendaje, walijana kuliendaje. You can't recall. Memory lapse. How did you go home? Who was the last person you were with? Blackouts. You can't remember. You can't tell where you are, how you've woken up. And this is very dangerous, especially among our youth. And I have to mention this. When you go out for those bashes and you become intoxicated, you go into blackouts, then you have a problem, because you can easily be raped. You can easily procure other diseases. You can get HIV, you can get hepatitis, you can get cervical cancer, you can get COVID. I mean, it's a big problem when you go into a coma or a blackout. Then short attention span, where your concentration is affected, difficulty in concentration, lack of sleep. When I was an alcoholic, some 11 or so years back, I could not get sleep. Whenever I went to bed, I would find I would feel like they are fleas. I would feel there are things that are walking, or walking is not the right word, but their insects are crawling on my face. And all this is disorientation of the brain. Second last is change in behavior. When somebody becomes quarrelsome, somebody becomes so easily angry, when somebody becomes he's inconsistent, when somebody becomes, you can relate, all these are signs. Lastly, possession of drug-related paraphernalia. He's always with items, he's always with magazines, he's always like you've seen the ones who want to be associated with weed, they're always putting the weed the weed emblem. I don't know, is it an emblem or whatever it is, and they want to be associated with it on the Marvin, on the T-shirt. They want the true colors. They want to do. I mean, all these are signs and symptoms of substance abuse. Now, we have talked about signs and symptoms, and here I want to throw a question. What is a sign? What's the difference between a sign and a symptom? A sign is anything that you can see. It's something that is physical. A symptom is when you're sleeping with somebody in bed and he starts having shivers, he starts having tremors. Those are symptoms that this person is having. When you start having hallucinations, those are symptoms. When you realize that you cannot perform without drugs, those are symptoms that you could be, or your loved one is having issues with substances. Due to the interest of time, I wish to stop at that so that we can. I don't know whether the moderator will allow questions at this juncture or there a little later in the session. But for today, that was my presentation, and questions are very much welcome. I wish to thank you for listening to me. I hope I've not taken so much time, and so that we can give the next speaker a chance. Thank you very much, and I hope to discuss more with you. Thank you. Back to you, moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Kibe. That was an awesome presentation. For the participants, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat box or raise your hand. Yeah, we'll go to the next speakers and then we'll have questions after, so that all speakers will have time to present. Okay. Our next speaker is Janny Kathomi Marangu, who is the founder of a Young Girl Foundation. Mrs. Marangu, yeah, I think she will introduce herself and then go on. Welcome, Janny Marangu.
Hello?
Hello.
You
can hear me?
Yes.
Can hear you, Marangu.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me take this opportunity to thank Katile very much for the opportunity. This is a learning moment. Learning is a lifetime process that it doesn't end. I'm glad to meet all the panelists and to share and to learn from each and every one of you. My name is Janny Kathomi Marangu. It's Miss. Marangu is my father. So I am a social worker by profession and the founder of Ayamagar Foundation. Ayamagar Foundation is based in Korogocho slum. Basically what we do menstrual hygiene management. We advocate for a drug-free society considering that Korogocho is a slum and whatever goes on in a slum, all sorts of drugs are available. We advocate for a drug-free society. We also do women empowerment. just to mention but a few. This evening, I'm going to talk about drug facts, types of drugs and their effects, and signs and symptoms. Mr. Kibe was spoken before me as actually exhausted most of what I was supposed to cover. I'm actually been doing a repetition of what actually he has done. So I go straight to my points. We'll start with the drug facts. And the first fact is that drug is within our culture. Mr. Kibe talked about it, that drugs have been there since time immemorial. For example, alcohol. Alcohol has been there and it is still there. I tend to think it will be there for a long time. In an African setup, every celebration, there must be an alcohol drink somewhere. We have so many names with our local dialect. Some of them call them Karubo, Muratina, just to mention but a few. So drug, some drugs are in our culture. The other fact is that people abuse or use psychoactive substances for various reasons. Mr. Kibe has already exhausted on that. You want to fit in, you want to experiment, you are rejected, and to find solace and to find consolation, you use drugs. The other fact is that drugs affect our brains. They affect our perception. These drugs work on various neurotransmitters. A neurotransmitter is a chemical substance that is used by our brains to communicate. So these drugs affect our neurotransmitters. That's why they cause a distortion of perception. Your reasoning is distorted kabisa. It is distorted. And some of these drugs mimic the natural neurotransmitters. For example, marijuana, they mimic them such that they block the natural way our brain is supposed to produce the neurotransmitter. The other point is that the amount of drugs that you take, drugs will affect us in a different way depending on the amount that we take. The person who has taken an overdose or just a little, they will be affected in a different way. For example, if you overdose, you can end up going into a coma or even passing out. The other people who use drugs moderately, like for example, the one that is commonly used, the alcohol. Some people function normally just by taking a small percentage of it. Others, they must do binge drinking for them to feel high. Or they believe if I do binge drinking, I take a lot in excess, that is when I'll feel the high. We'll move on to the types of drugs and their effect. That one will be very fast. But before that, some of the areas of every brain affect a certain part of the brain. There's the compass callosum, which is a part of our brain that helps us in solving our problems. So some of these drugs will go and affect that area. The other part that is affected by the drugs is the hippocampus. Hippocampus has also a very important use in learning and memory. At times they interfere with this part of the brain, and then you'll find that a young person is losing memory, and you wonder what is happening. simply because of the drug that this young man or that this young lady has used, and it has tampered with the brain. Let's move on to the drugs, types of drugs and their effects. In terms of drugs, we have several types of drugs. We have antidepressants, we have hallucinogens, we have inhalants. The first one is, let me talk about the hallucinogens. The hotter the user's perception. For example, the LSD. It's a big word that LSD is a short form of a certain chemical. The PCP, the inhalant are chemicals that are ingested by inhaling them. These chemicals are not supposed to be used by human beings, but people use them just to get the high. Some of these inhalant are nail polish, paint thinners, and gasoline. You'll also find that we have other drugs like depressants. Depressant create a relaxation feeling, and alcohol is an antidepressant. We have stimulant drugs. These drugs are used to increase energy, concentration, and wakefulness. And some of them are used even by our students in school because they believe if they take the drug, they'll be able to study for long during preps, or they'll be able to wake up very early in the morning to study. And actually, Mr. Kibe, I like the way he has tried to touch on the myths that are there. There are some myths that our young people are using nowadays so that they can be able to take drugs. And we need to demystify these myths and put facts on the ground and let them know as they go out there to experiment on drugs. These are the precautions. For now, I think we should be advocating of no experimentation. Don't even try drugs. And if you have tried drugs, there is help somewhere. You can still get assistance. Let's talk about the signs and symptoms. Mr. Kibe has talked about them. Actually, it's just a recap, just to end up on a few of things that has talked about. There is lots of interest in school, and especially our youths. As a parent, look at the behavioral changes in your children. We have also the physical effect of the drug. Some of the physical effects are the staggering, the slurred speech. We also have the behavioral changes, whereby a person who has been active, a person who loved a certain activity, loses interest on what he or she loved most. They also get into fights. Some of these our children or people who use drugs, they get into fight for no apparent reason. I think I'll stop there, and unless anyone has a question. Back to the moderator.
Thanks, Miss Janny Marangu, for that insightful talk about drugs, facts, and signs and symptoms. If there's someone who has a question, they can ask in the chat box. Or if someone has a question, you can raise your hand and then we will take questions from the first speaker to the third speaker. If you have a question. Okay, I can see no question. So our next speaker is Anthony Nguru, the co-founder and team leader of TeteaKE Kenya. Is Mr. Anthony in? Yeah, I can't see Mr. Anthony in. So I'll be having the next speaker.
I am in.
Oh, I didn't see your name. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. This is Janny, is it?
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. My name is Anthony. I'm the co-founder and team leader of Team TeteaKE Kenya. Team TeteaKE Kenya is a community-based organization. We are based in Kikuyu, but we work in quite a number of places, and our agenda is basically fighting poverty in our community. And we have campaigns that are helping us do so. And we believe that drug abuse or substance abuse is among the reasons or one of the root causes of poverty in our community. So my work is pretty easy actually today. I'm just going to mention a few things about the impacts of substance abuse to the family. So much has been talked about by previous speakers on the different types of drugs, their effects. So for the interest of time, allow me just to go straight to the point, to the impacts of substance abuse to the family. So whenever we are talking about family, of course, we look at the facets that make a family, and that is the children, the father and the mother, and the children. And so we will begin by what are the impacts, what are the negative impacts of drug abuse to the child. This is the instance whereby the father is a drug abuser or a drunkard. So what are these impacts? You'll find that when children experience parents who are addicted to drugs, they face a lot of trauma. They witness a lot of trauma in that when their father or the head of the family comes in drunk and starts abusing the mother, or beats the mother, then this affects the child so much. It has been said that if you're raised in an abusive home, then chances are that you'll be an abuser yourself. If you're raised in a family where they take drugs, chances are you are going to also take drugs. And some of these cycles is the cycle that we need to break as early as possible so that this child can grow up holistically, so that he can be of use to both himself or herself, the family, and also the nation. So one of the impacts is once this child is raised up in a family that is made of addicts, then chances are they're at risk rather of being addicts themselves in future. Another impact is that neglect. There's a lot of neglect in that when the father or the mother or both are addicts to drugs, then they will not be able to take care of their children, or they won't be able to, look after the needs of this child. And so there's a lot of neglect. We've seen fathers disappearing or mothers disappearing, and children are left alone in the house. And that is why we have so many kids in the streets, and that is why also we have so many in children's centers. And this is basically because they were neglected, they were abandoned when they were still young or when they are still young. There is physical abuse in that this child may, due to some of the impacts of drug abuse, and they have been mentioned by previous speakers. Some of these children are beaten up, and they incur a lot of physical abuse from the ones who are taking these drugs. They are sometimes beaten. We've seen children who are beaten severely, or children who are burnt, even houses being burning up because either the mother was too drunk to put out the candle, and the house caught fire, and these children are physically abused in that way, in that they are really injured when the people who are supposed to be responsible for them do not take care of them. There's a lot of sexual abuse as well, and rape in families where their parents take drugs, families that take drugs. There's a lot of rape. For instance, and TeteaKE has been working with different organizations to try and mitigate gender-based violence in our families. We have seen and witnessed children being raped by the so-called boyfriends to their mothers. And this is basically because either the mother or the father has passed out due to this drug. There's a lot of mental and emotional disorder whenever a child is in an environment of drug abusers or addicts, in that the child feels unworthy, he feels neglected, he feels that he's abandoned. So there's a lot of mental torture, a lot of emotional disorder to this child, in that he does not have, rather the basic needs are not provided to him or her. So he feels as if he is unwanted or she is unwanted. There is also personality change, in that this child, this child is still developing. His brain and his character is still in development, and whenever he sees or whenever he witnesses parents who are abusers, then his character or her character will change. Her personality or his personality will change, and children are repetitive in nature. So when they see certain things in the house, they tend to repeat that, and their personalities change, and you'll find that there's truancy even in the child, both at home, even in the community and school. So there's also lack of education when this parent who is supposed to pay for fee and this and he's not doing so, then most of these children are sent back home due to lack of fee and other necessities such as books or uniform. And so they lose so much of their education, and eventually they drop out of school. So those are just some of the impacts that are negative impacts of drug abuse to the child. And it is of great importance to protect them, because we've seen that this is a cycle. If a parent abuses drugs, then the child is at risk of abusing drugs themselves. To the family, to the rest of the family, the impact of drug is the family deals with withdrawal. If this abuser or this child who is abusing drugs is unable to get the drugs, they face a lot of withdrawal symptoms, and some of them are so severe, such as the loss of blood, and they can be anemic, and so the family has to deal with that. They need to take this child or this youth to the hospital, and there's a lot of torture to the family when dealing with someone who is abusing drugs or someone who's addicted to drugs, in that they deal with a lot of withdrawal. There's a strained relationship between this abuser and the parent or the relative, in that the relative cannot really trust this person. And so they face a lot of, the abuser themselves face a lot of stigma, and also the family faces a lot of stigma, and the relationship is ruined because of drug abuse. There's financial hardship, in that the treatment for drug abuse is very high, especially here in Kenya. And so many families are unable to take their relatives to, or their loved ones who are affected by drugs, to rehab centers. And so there's a lot of financial hardship, especially in dealing with someone who is an abuser or an addict to drug. There's poor performance in school, and we'll look about that at that later. Poor performance, in that this child misses a lot of schoolwork due to drugs. And it's not just children, really. We are talking, this forum is about the youth who are in colleges, who are in TVET institutions, who are in universities, and they will find that they will lose so much of education because of drug and drug abuse. They in the endeavor of seeking those drugs or going for manual labor so that they can buy the drugs, or stealing. So they lose a lot of education time looking for that, and that will lead to poor performance. We've heard of situations where a parent thinks that the daughter is in second year of university or just about to finish, only to realize that he or she never reported back to school. This is some of the reasons the family goes through due to drug abuse. There's exposure to other drugs, in that when the family is dealing with someone who is a drug addict, the other siblings are prone to also get addicted, because there's a lot of drug in there might be drugs in the house, or people who are peddling drugs around the neighborhood. So there's a lot of exposure to other family members, and they're at a risk of getting into drugs themselves. There's reckless behavior from this person who is taking drugs, and so the family has to deal with it. And you'll find that these families are usually more often summoned to the police stations or summoned to the chief, because either their child stole something or their child was found in violence in the community. And so this parent or this family endures a lot of shame when they're trying to protect this child, or they're trying to look after this child who is addicted to drugs. So there's a lot of risky, reckless behavior from the child, and the family needs to deal with that. Abusers steal money. They get into that habit so that they can support their behavior or their habit of taking drugs. And so these families they usually lose a lot of money, and they cannot be able to trust this person to make decisions or financial decisions for the family. We've heard of even, we were dealing with a case sometimes back of a father who are actually, the parents were coffee farmers, but the dad is an addict, and the dad went to the bank and withdrew all the proceeds from that farming business. And that proceed money was supposed to be taking care of the family and taking care of the child. And this father withdrew the money, even without his husband withdrew this amount of money. So there's a lot of financial mishaps that are happening in a family that is dealing with drugs. This person who is an addict is also prone to run away from home, and it brings so much stress to the parents, especially to our mothers, who we know love us so much. So this person running away brings a lot of torture to this family, and they keep on looking for them, not knowing whether they will find their daughter or their son alive or not. So there's also a lot of grief, and I have heard someone talking about overdose. There's that risk of overdosing, especially on opiates or drugs that have opium in them. And these are drugs that are supposed to enable a patient, deal with pain. And these drugs are usually very addictive, usually over misused by the abusers, and you'll find most of them OD or overdose, and they die. And so this brings so much grief to the family, and that uncertainty of not knowing whether your child is alive or dead is of extreme torture to the family. Whenever we talk about impacts on drug on education, there's a lot of theories and a lot of information that is going around. And we've heard of, those stories that once you take drugs, you become smart in school, And those are just lies that are being peddled so that drugs can be sold, especially in our high schools and our universities. So it is good that we mentioned that those are just lies and cannot, they don't really help in education. So on the impacts on education, this student loses a lot of time in school. We mentioned that. And you know, it is said that actually it's scientific that our brains develop till the age of 25. And so when you interfere with that development, you interfere with the functions of the brain. And so when a child is introduced to drugs at a very young age, chances are he or she is going to be really slow in school, and it will bring about you know, poor grades in school, and that will really affect his school life. So we've had studies show that marijuana, for example, affects our attention, it affects our memory, it affects our ability to learn. There's a lot of mishaps and miscommunication about this drug, specifically marijuana, weed, as we know it, in that it helps education, it helps students get smarter, but those are just theories that are untrue and theories that do not really make any sense. We have heard of studies abroad, and I have to say this, we've been reading a lot, I've been reading a lot of these studies about how marijuana or how weed can help students, or patients rather, who are autistic, children who are autistic. But those studies are not yet proven, and we cannot just assume that we've read somewhere that it helps autistic children or children with cerebral palsy. So we should allow our children to take that. I usually tell students in forums that when you read such studies, you should first ask yourself, am I autistic? Do I have cerebral palsy to take such drugs? So if it is true that at one point it helps, then it helps those who are sick. And if you are of sound mind and you are treated by a doctor if you are sick, then maybe we can think about it. But if you are of sound mind, then there is no reason whatsoever to take these drugs. Then maybe because of time, we'll go very quickly to the impact on drug on our employment. People who take drug, especially alcohol, and we've seen this affecting so many employees at work, in that they are unable to function, they're unable to even wake up and go to work, and they lose their jobs. They really do lose their jobs. People who you know, are very are experts in various sectors of our economy lose their jobs because of addiction to drug and drug abuse. So it is of great importance that we keep clean or keep away from these drugs as soon as possible, even before we get to our job markets. That is it on the impacts of drugs. Let me just go through some of the preventive strategies on drug and drug abuse here in Kenya, especially for children or for the youth who are in our high schools or who are in our universities. One of the preventive strategies is to involve yourself in activities like games, drama, clubs, and societies whenever in school. Right now, due to COVID-19, engage yourself in various activities such as farming that will engage you, and you'll be busy and you'll not be able to think about these things. So develop also a good reading culture. It is said that if you want to hide something from an African, put it in a book. Let's not go through that policy, or let's not think about that. Have a reading culture, read something that is useful, have a book that is going to engage your mind during this particular time. Even studies, even schoolwork, do a little bit of schoolwork at least every day so that your mind can be engaged. Apply critical thinking. and we emphasize about this every day, you need to ask yourself, why am I doing this? To what benefit does this drug is, or what benefit does it bring to my own body? So have some critical thinking in you. Ask yourself, why should I do this? Why should I engage in this? Develop mechanisms to deal with difficulties. We've seen those who are unable to deal with stress, they opt to do drugs. Find mechanisms. Exercise whenever necessary so that you can be able to deal with the difficult situations that you're going through, and do not use drugs as a way of curing yourself through stress. No. Develop mechanisms that will help you deal with difficulties. Choose friends wisely. I usually say if you stay in a company of people who are doing weed, you'll end up doing weed yourself. So keep away from people who are not useful to you. And this applies to every one of us. Keep and choose your friends wisely. Develop your personal potentials, such as activities. Appreciate, love, and accept yourself as who you are. Identify and pursue your purpose in life. What do you want to be? If you are a footballer, what are you doing so that to advance that that purpose in your life, to be a footballer? Of course, self-awareness. Identify your capabilities, your strengths, your limitations, your weaknesses, and then you appreciate what you have. Be aware of your physical, mental, and emotional state taking place in your life. Yeah, be aware of your physique and your mental state at all times. And I believe with these preventive strategies, you'll be able to stay away from drugs. Alice, I want to thank you so much for your time, and thank you for the invite. Asante sana.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony, for that. You have talked about social impact of drugs from childhood. You have also talked about some education. You have really informed us a lot, very, very many things about societal impact of drug use. So according to me, from the speakers we have heard since today, I think that as much as we want to use drugs, we should avoid them. Even if it's a drug or a medicine, we should not abuse them. So I thank you so much, Mr. Anthony. We'll go to our next speaker. Then we'll have questions, and then we'll go to the last speakers. So our next speaker is Mr. Duncan Gikaara, who is in addiction, who specializes in helping people get out of addiction. So Mr. Duncan Gikaara, you're welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you.
Yes.
My name's yes. Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. My name's Duncan Nderito Gikaara. I'm a recovering alcoholic, having been an alcoholic for over over 25 years. Now in my 4th year in the and I'm also an accredited addiction counselor. And I'll talk about my journey. Sorry, let me first thank all the participants, Madam Katile Mutuku, and all the others who have and the ones who have presented. It was a good presentation. Now, I just want to start on my journey in addiction. I started taking alcohol when I was in secondary school. Immediately when I was in secondary school, I was about 14 years. And that time, according to myself, the way it started is that I went to a very conservative primary school that was Catholic sponsored. And due to the issues of having the conservativeness, there was very limited freedom. And also there was also the factor of having come from a family where alcohol was used. And immediately after primary school, when I joined secondary school, I started taking alcohol because of the influence of the peers. I was listening to the presentations of the other presenters and the initiation stages, and so mine was circumstantial use, because the company that I started keeping when I was brought about by my use, and I continued using up to Form 4, and after secondary school, I immediately joined college. I went to Kenya Polytechnic, where I took a course in electronics engineering. The was also in secondary school. In a college, there was plenty of alcohol because of the peer, and I continued taking. And incidentally, me being I was a performer when I was in school, so although it affected my performance when I was in secondary school, and in college, it never affected so much in my taking, because I was still a performer. So then immediately after college, I didn't hustle too much out of college. Then I got a job as a banker in Kenya Commercial Bank. Now there was also the other issue of now funds were much available, so there was still that freedom, and I was still very young. I was about 21 when I joined when I became a banker. So I continued taking, and there was much money. I stayed as a banker for about 7 years. The work could not be sustained because of my taking of alcohol. There's this issue of having no interest in the work, and I resigned immediately, and I went back to the course that I was taking in electrical electronics engineering, and I started the work of repairing phones. There was still much money in those days. That was back in the year 1999. That is when the mobile phones had entered the market. So I started repairing phones. There was money in the business, and I continued taking alcohol. Then I developed loss of interest. I stopped working. Then that is the moment I went to Kibe, staying in the slums, and was literally, that is the moment. And after so many years of taking alcohol because of time, it came to a point where now I could not control my drinking. After then I went to I was gone to prison. And when I thought I go to rehab. So I started mending fences with my parents, and I went to a rehab. I went for the 3 months program, and immediately after that, because of my experience as an addict, I developed an interest in helping addicts. Then from there, that is when I joined SAPTA, and I took a course in addiction counseling. From there, now that is when I got in the field of helping other addicts. So I'm 4 years, about 5 months sober, and still now very sober. Sorry that I will not continue because my battery is draining, and I'll still continue listening to the other presenters, and I'm so sorry that I have a problem with my phone. Thank you so much. Let me go back to the moderator, please. Thank you, and have a good presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan, for such a talk. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. Does anyone have a question so far? Any questions so far?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
My name is Jacob Malano. I have a question to Duncan. I want to ask, alcoholism genetically inherited? Maybe if someone, maybe your grandfather was addicted to alcohol, and then you get a child who is also addicted to alcohol, and then we have some people saying he's alcoholic like his grandfather. Then my question is alcoholism genetically inherited or is it just a mean? Thank you.
I think Mr. Duncan's lost. His battery went off. So I think any of the previous speakers can answer.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. This is Edwin.
Yeah.
And I wish to take this opportunity to thank all the presenters for the good work they're doing. And now to the question from Jacob. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks. The question that Jacob has asked is whether there is any scientific evidence that alcohol and drug use can be genetically or whether it can be hereditary, whether one can inherit. And the truth of the matter is that science has proven that the genetic predisposition can make your children or your siblings become victims of drug use or substance abuse. This is in line with, in connection with this, I would want to mention that there are many factors. Rather, we have factors that really contribute or factors that facilitate substance abuse. One of them is the environment that one has been brought up in, the environment that one lives in. Secondly, it is the biological makeup or the chemical makeup of a person, whereby you'll find people, when you take one beer, you get high and you become uncontrollable, whereas I can take as much as 3 crates or 24 beers and I'm still sober and standing. That is the chemical makeup in person. It varies from person to person. Lastly, the third factor is the one that you mentioned, genetical predisposition. I want to give personal experience out of my personal story. I mentioned there earlier that I'm an addiction psychologist, and also in recovery. I mentioned about 11 years in recovery, and for sure, when I look back at the history, my history, the family background, I find that my grandfather was a pure alcoholic. And this did not touch on my dad, but it skipped and came to me. What am I saying? I'm saying that since I've been struggling in alcoholism for nearly 10 years, there could be, I'm very much aware and very much alert that my children could be exposed. How do I then prevent this from how do I then prevent this from happening to them? Prevention. Prevention is the best measure. I try to avoid my children from being exposed or predisposed, because I presume there could be that element of genetical predisposition. Thank you very much. I hope you have, and it has been scientifically proven. Yeah. So Jacob, stay affirmed that it can happen. Just beware, prevent, and try to avoid exposing your children. By exposing, I mean there could the gene could be asleep. It could be lying in the child until when he or she first takes the first sip, the first drink, the first puff, the first. So be informed. It has been scientifically proven. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Gitau, I really understand. You really answered my question. So I now know. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for that answer. Yeah, I think it can be inherited, and I said it happens. Yeah,
Yes.
I've seen people around my place who have that aspect. So if there's no other question, we can go to the next speaker because of time. Mr. Elisha Abok.
I have another question, please.
Oh yeah.
Sorry. First of all, I apologize because I joined late. I was somewhere, but I really learn a lot for the speakers that I get them speaking to us. My second question is on the prevention strategies that our brother Anthony presented to us. Is there any international organization that are helping us as a country? Is there any international organization that are helping our communities to prevent the drug abuse? Thank you. That is my second question.
Hello, can I respond to that one? Hello.
Yes.
I just hope that I'm being heard. I hope this question is coming from Jacob again, and that he's asking whether we have organizations or institutions which help in prevention or rather in educating or equipping our youth with information. Yes, there are. There are so many of them. There are so many institutions, global institutions. Sorry, you mentioned that you came in a little late. But in the beginning, I had a presentation and it showed a organization or institutions in which I'm a member. I happen to be a member. We have institutions like World Federation Against Drugs. It is based in Sweden. We have also an institution called Global Goodwill Ambassadors. We have International Society of Substance Use Prevention, ISAP. In fact, that one conducts a lot of prevention forums, and also it has some funding, but it has to happen if you become a member. So I would want to confirm that they are there. There are so many of them. There are so many institutions. In Kenya, we have Addiction Prevention Association of Kenya. This one is an organization that has been recently set up, and it is making arrangements on that. Lastly, the organ that is responsible for campaigning against alcohol and drug abuse in Kenya, that is NACADA, they do finance, they do fund, but you have to know, you have to always keep visiting their websites and they do funding, and it varies from they give parameters into which you find you look whether you're within the given parameters or the requirements. Back to you, moderator, and I hope I've responded to you, Jacob. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you,
moderator.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, just to add to what Mr. Kibe has said. Truly, sorry.
Brothers and sisters who are deep ranks, but sometimes we don't know the organizations and also the location of the organization. But at least now,
okay.
We are aware of that.
Moderator, maybe we can get some guidance from you. We seem to have lost him or something.
It's okay. I think we can have the next speaker.
Okay.
I think we can have Mr. Elisha, and then we'll have Gabriel Warui. Because you're speaking on the same topic, I don't know who will go first. Mr. Gabriel, I think you can go first, and then we'll have Mr. Abok. Yeah. So welcome, Mr. Gabriel Warui.
I'm able to connect and share with especially our youth across Africa. My mind is to talk about counseling the affected person that's the addict. Basically, as a psychologist, what we normally do as a counselor, as a psychologist, to make an assessment. And currently, we are using what we call the DSM-5. That is the diagnostic statistical manual of mental disorders. And for any addicted person, we have what we call the 11 criteria for substance use disorder. Or Mwea, for that matter, and the 11 criteria will be able to bring out the aspect of.
You are breaking up. You are breaking.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Your network issue.
Hello? Can you hear me now? Just when I came back.
Yeah, I can hear.
Can I go ahead? Kindly?
Yeah.
The 11 criteria for assessment before we start counseling is as follows. First of all,
Mr. Brian,
is Gabriel.
I think maybe you can stop using the video, and then we can see if the sound is okay.
Okay, let me try to stop the video. Yes, please. Can you hear me now?
I think it's better.
It's better. Now, the 11 criteria before starting counseling is as follows. As counselors, we need to look at number one, is the client having what we call cravings? Number two, we look at any withdrawals, that is when one stops using or maybe the drug of choice
is limited in the body, the client might have some signs like headaches, sweating, for that matter. Then is tolerance, that is, the client is having some aspect of adding the amount of use. If I was taking, for instance, 2 drinks, the person might keep on taking more and more to sustain the amount of substance that is normally used. And by so doing, we talk about from small amounts to large amounts use of the drug. Then we look at the interest in matters concerning major roles, aspects of the client. The activities like occupation, look at the family aspect. The client being able to conduct his activities of daily living. If at all the low interest is picked up, and maybe the amount of time that is involved in attending to these particular aspects is affected, maybe it's limited, or maybe not up to the task, maybe that person is affected. Can I go ahead? Hello? Hello?
Hello. You are breaking. I don't know if you can do that.
I fix the internet and I come back. Hello? Hello? Now, what we normally do after the 11 criteria is to start being objective to why the client needs counseling. Number 1, we look at awareness. Most clients do not know they are sick because addiction is a disease. And therefore, the second aspect is to make the client become aware through psychoeducation. The process whereby the client is given a lot of information in a systematic manner, and by so doing, he's able to understand that he has a problem, and this problem is called addiction, being dependent drug of choice. Because you cannot start now counseling or dealing with the issues affecting the client, and yet the person is not aware of the problem. Then this psychoeducation involves some processes like teaching some of the symptoms of drug problems, symptoms and the signs of effects of drugs to the body. Of course, that is physiological aspect. Then we look at the social aspect, how the drug lifestyle, useful lifestyle has affected the client along the line of his life. Then we also look at what we call the morals, the spiritual aspect, the moral aspect, the virtues, the value the person has, in matters life, or maybe attitude towards environment, that is the people around him, and maybe life in general. And the best model for addiction counselors is what we call, therefore, the biopsychosocial model. For us counselors working in addiction setup, we must work with what we call medics, and these medics, specifically, we need to work with what we call psychiatric nurses, or psychiatric doctors. In Kenya, there are very few, and through the support of NACADA in any rehab, we are encouraged to work closely with psychiatric nurses because we have very few psychiatric doctors. The nurses, these psychiatric nurses will support us to analyze the abnormal issues, that is the psychopathology issues, that is the mental disorders, e.g., schizophrenia, as a result of maybe drug use. We also have bipolar and many others. And therefore, what a drug does to the brain is to make the person behave abnormally. And by so doing,
Mr. Gabriel,
yes.
You are breaking up so much. Okay, do you have slides you can share so that we can? You are breaking up so much.
What about now?
Yeah, anyone who can hear clearly.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, anyone in the participants who can hear clearly?
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Can I go ahead?
Yeah, you can try bring an idea.
Okay, I was saying now the biopsychosocial model we're talking about allowing the addicts to support us as cancer psychologists working as addiction counselors. Then the psychosocial part is whereby now we come in to make sure that the client is aware of the problems, the social issues, plus maybe the spiritual aspects so that the client can be able to be supported. And here is where we bring in people called parents, sponsors, and any significant person who might have been affected by the drug lifestyle.
Hello, we can't hear you.
And therefore,
I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
Hello?
Hello, you are breaking up so much. We can't hear you. Do you have a presentation that you can share on the screen so that we can follow?
Yes.
We can't hear you.
I don't know if it's clear. Okay, so you are suggesting what do I do?
You are breaking up so much. We are hearing one word, then the next 10 words we don't hear.
Okay, I'll share my slide, right?
Yeah, you can share your screen.
Yes, I will.
Yeah, can you do so in the next 1 minute? Or we have our next speaker?
Let me try to fix my net, then if it fails, I will be able to share maybe my slides.
Yeah, just type in the chat box. I think we'll have our next speaker as you try to connect because we can't hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Just type in the chat box because we're not hearing you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll have our next speaker is Mr. Gabriel tries to connect. Mr. Elisha Abok. Elisha Abok. Fredrick Elisha Abok.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I've been waiting on for this. Sorry, I'm on the road, and the more I've been waiting, my battery is actually running on low. But allow me to very quickly share. My notes are actually coming on, and they will be able to present them on to you as I'm coming. If someone can actually give Dorothy an opportunity to share the notes. But of course, allow me to tackle a little bit the counseling aspect of the drugs, of the drug addiction. And I think that's what my brother was trying on to bring across. And what I would like to say, and this is a caution on that counselors have actually been doing, but whenever you are counseling a drug, someone in the drug challenge, it's important to put this person to be on the center of the equation rather than you as a counselor be the center of the counseling, by actually giving the person an opportunity to express themselves without victimization or without conditional direction. Now, create an environment of grace where this person can actually express themselves without necessarily feeling victimized. The other aspect is that it's important to let the person know that the solution rests squarely with them. And they hold on the solution and they can be able to make it out of that. Drug addiction is such a dynamic component in that it is social, psychological, it is heretical, but it's also character-wise and environmental, I mean. So there is need and it's necessary to look at all these aspects and get to understand why is the person, what is actually causing this particular person to get into drug. Once you get the root cause of the matter, you can actually be able to tailor-made or contextualize a solution based on that. But basically, it is important to allow the client to be the center of the situation rather than showing much of what you know. So there's a saying that says people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So there is an element of empathy, concern, and also direction setting so that the person can actually be able to build on from there. But let us move on. Please take me on to the next slide. Allow me to go on very fast because my battery is almost going down. So this is drugs and abuse substances. I was just commenting on one. So we say actually the drugs abuse and substance abuse actually refers on to the use of certain chemicals for the purpose of creating pleasure, effects of the brain. Now, there are over 190 million drug users around the world. If you actually, that's just a research, the outcomes of what you're bringing on. And the level of increase and majorly the people who are using drugs are on an alarming stage. And, it's both the young adults, the young people, and the age of 30 and above. And so it is consistently building on every other day. So let us understand what is addiction, because sometimes they've actually not gotten to understand what addiction. Please take me back a little bit. Now, addiction has three components. The element of addiction is actually defined as the drug craving seeking and the use in the face of negative health or social consequences. And this is where someone uses drugs on dependence on particular thing, to be able to achieve one particular thing. But there's also the dependence. It is the development of the withdrawal symptoms after the use of the substance actually stop. So this is the reaction, and that's why you find people getting onto a rehabilitation and they're coming out and they still want to depend on this. And also the other aspect is the tolerance, is where the body becomes less responsive to the specific amount of substance, thereby causing the person to increase the amount of drug intake to achieve the previous effect. So it's important to understand that this is on the blood, and necessarily it's something that actually someone get on to connect on with, basically as a result of what they have actually been using consistently, So take me on to the other slide. Okay. When drug abuse is when drug abuse is actually occurs, drug abuse can occur with or without tolerance or withdrawal. Tolerance or withdrawals indicates the physical dependence, and the key issue of evaluating addiction is if a person is unable to stop using drugs. Oh, sorry. Let me. My battery is actually getting on low, but all right. Could I allow Dorothy to pick it up from here? Can Dorothy pick it up from here, because I have on my notes and my phone is actually bringing on trouble for me.
Katile.
Hello?
Katile. Guys, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I'm just wondering from Katile whether it's okay if I can take up, because I'm not with Fred, but he's on the road, but I can take up on his behalf. But I just wanted to find out, Fred, before your phone goes off, I don't know whether there is a question that you would want probably Fred to address before his phone goes off. If you're still there, Fred.
Yes, I'm still here. I'm still here.
Maybe, Fred, I can ask you probably to answer some of the effects of drugs on our young people and, of course, in our society, probably, if you can do that. What are some of the major causes? And because I know you did have time to introduce March yourself, I know you were once involved in drugs, and probably you can share what was your experience and how you were able to come out of drugs, and probably what you could advise.
Yes, actually, what I can actually advise is that, you know, drugs has a lot of psychological dynamics. So the social environment that you are actually sometimes determine outcome on your drugs activity and what you are actually engaged on into. And this sometimes is actually what makes the young people get involved in drugs. I personally, when I grew up in the city, on the Eastlands of the city, what happened is that my exposure to the people who are taking drugs actually inspired me, for lack of a better word, to be involved in drugs. And also you find that children who grow up in families where parents do take alcohol or are involved in smoking has a high tendency to be involved in drugs. The other aspect is the element of peer pressure. People get into drugs because they're testing on their capability and you know, the desire to, you know, test drugs based on, you know, their the environment that they find themselves into, and they want to belong. You know, most cases is that people want to belong, and chances are high that, you know, they find themselves are involved in this thing, and you know, they make relevance as a result of taking drugs. But of course, drug addiction is on very high alert, because especially because of the more exposure of drugs, and people are exposing drugs based on where the availability. They are cheap, they are available, they are actually maximized on use, and in most cases you find that you can access them openly, you know, without not necessarily looking for them for a long time. What made me to actually be able to get out of drugs is when I actually change on the environment. Environmental change, and also change of thinking. You know, I changed my mentality. Of course, personally, I gave my life to Christ. I began to associate myself with people who were born again. I stopped going onto the reggae club. I stopped exposing myself into the discos and where I used to find myself into. And this helped me a lot in actually changing on my lifestyle, in being someone who's an addict. Could I have answered the questions?
Yes, you have. Let me check on the chat room whether we have. Yeah, I wanted to see whether there's anyone with any question. But I can see, yeah, I can see there's no other question, but I can ask you one more before you go, because I know you interact a lot with high schoolers and university guys, and of course the youth. Probably I would ask you, what would be your advice? Because we have people in this forum who are working with young
Yes.
people, and they are
Yes.
going through, and of course, before we had someone who is also coming out of drug addicts for many years. I think he said about 20 years or over, but now he's 4 years and something. And of course,
Yes.
what would be your advice to people working with the young people? What kind of environment? Because we know there are people struggling with addiction and abuse. What is your advice to people in this forum? What is it that we can do to help our young people, and not necessarily the young people? We also even have families who are struggling from this. What is it that you can you know, emphasize on, even as a team that is working with people struggling with drugs?
I think number one is create a sanitized environment whereby we need to have a mental change, because people have always believed that drugs enhance people to be effective in different platform. Like if you're playing soccer, if you take drugs, then you'll be able to perform on well. Or if you're a musician, you can actually be able to sustain the tenacity. These things are myths that actually does not add up. And so I think it is important to build young people relevantly into understanding that they have energy, they have the tenacity, and they have the dynamics that they can be able to bring on without necessarily using drugs. Number two is to actually be we just need to be centered on positivity. Let us be positive, because people are so negative. They're negative with themselves, they're negative with their aspiration, they're negative with their environment, and this causes them to begin to look for something that can actually be able to bring them a relevance. Now, what I always tell people is to get to understand that you are a unique person the way you are. You are created uniquely. You are actually performing uniquely. So there is no need to be like the other person, because young people are into drugs because they want to fulfill peer pressure. And for that reason, they find themselves that they want to look like. It is not necessary to be able to look like some other else. You are unique the way you are. So understand who you are and the unique gifting that God has given you. This will help you to be relevant in the midst of people who do not see you relevant.
Great. When I look at your notes, somewhere I can see you had indicated that drug abuse is seen as in various different age groups and in individuals from nearly all walks of life and socioeconomic strata. However, men are more likely to abuse drugs than women. Single people are more likely than married individuals, and urban dwellers more likely than rural dwellers. Can you probably tell us why it is that more men engage themselves in drugs than women, and why is it that you know, people in urban places are likely, you know, to be involved in drugs or substance abuse than people in the rural area?
Number one,
what is your thought? Or
I think for when it comes to the urban areas, is the accessibility of drugs that is easily accessible, and so people are actually tend to easily get them at ease. But secondly, it's to understand that it's also the element of you know, why men tend to abuse drugs is because men the male aspect of a person is a struggling aspect, and you know, people struggle with the ideologies, sense of belonging, achievement, and all this other kind of aspect, and you find that in most cases they get themselves involved in drugs, trying to be able to be relevant on the things that they're actually looking forward to be involved in. And so on that relevant, it started from where they come from, you know, how are they brought up, you know, what are some of the things that they were exposed to on their childhood, and you know, as per, you know, how do they grab on the relevancy on the upbringing and all this kind of aspect. So these are some of the things that actually make men actually, you know, early exposure, environmental behavior, social psychological dynamics. These are some of the things that make men be able to get exposed to drugs than ladies. Am I through? Am I through?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, 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 we can hear you.
Thank you so much. So maybe they can get on the phone, and maybe someone can actually be able to, you can contact with me. My contacts are on there in case someone wants to, get more, and also can get on to follow my programs on Mondays. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Fred. Katile, sorry over as co-moderator, but I just want to help Fred because I know he's on the road and he's not on a very smooth road. He's coming from the village. But for Fred, so in case anyone wants to get in touch with him, you can take his number. You can check from the screen at the bottom. There is also an email, down there. There's an email, so you can do an email to him. But in case you have any questions, I work alongside with Fred. I support him, on what he does. And so, of course, if you have any question, I'll be glad to answer. If there is any question that would have been, directed to Fred, I can be able to support you guys. So thank you so much, Katile. You can take over if you have any question. If you need me to cover anything else, I can do so. But in case you need, the presentation for Fred, I can send it to you, Katile. Then you can be able to give it to whoever would want to have the notes from Fred's presentation.
Thank you so much.
Clear from...
Thank you so much, Dorothy, and for the presentation from Abok. We have gained something. I think you can share the presentation so that we can also share with the participants for the session he didn't talk about. So I don't know if Gabriel, you can share your screen.
Hello.
So I think
Hello.
We only have 10 minutes remaining.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hey, Gabriel. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
A summary. Briefly, I will share about the main models that we normally use in addiction counseling. Number one is the 12 steps of recovery. Number two, we have the family therapy model. And number three, we have the individual and also the group therapy models. And therefore, for us to be objective for addiction affected clients, we put them first in the 12 steps of recovery that takes about 3 months. And mainly because of the low awareness of the disease factor. Therefore, the first step, which is very critical, is to make sure that they understand that they are very much powerless to these drugs that affect them. And therefore, they need the greater power. And this power is about the support system. We make them become aware that unless they have this support system, they cannot be able to, make it and maybe heal from the challenge of addiction. And the first one is to make sure that they understand the role of family members. These are the significant other persons, the role of medics, the role of maybe the church members, and of course, counselors, the role of positive peer friends. That is the environment that surrounds them out there. And by so doing, but to understand that basically, we also make sure family members, these are the people that are close to their life, are involved in therapy sessions. And that is maybe twice per month or once per month for that period of 3 months that will be there. So that some of the destroyed, strained relationships can be able to be amended. And therefore, along the line of steps of recovery, there's a step called having a list of those people that have been harmed. Having a list of these people will be able to make the client understand that he needs to have direct amends to these people who surrounds him out there, so that he can be able to have a social support system upon discharge from maybe a rehabilitation center or from a treatment center. And therefore, if a social relationship is not healed, somehow the client can be affected and can be influenced to maybe go back to the drug of choice, and that's what we call relapse. Another step that's very critical is the step that allows the client to make a decision, willing decision, a decision that comes from within. We support the client to make the decision so that he can be able to differentiate the unsafe environment, that's the people, slippery places, and of course the slippery things. The client is able to have that kind of creating a boundary between positive grounds that will be able to support his recovery upon discharge from the rehab. Can I go ahead?
Yes.
Hello, Dorothy? You can hear me?
Yeah, you are.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. And this formula is called SPPT, whereby addiction counselors are able to psychoeducate clients to avoid the slippery people, the slippery places, and the slippery things. These can be even addressed, can be even be regarded as a dress code, a lifestyle. Places, e.g., like where they used to go, like for Mira guys, they like calling places like bases, where they go, maybe they play some pool games, and by playing pool games, they might be influenced to use those drugs there. So these bases can be now be adjusted to positive bases, like the church, and maybe a positive hobby, maybe like swimming. And by so doing, when they are out there, they're able to spend their time in a very safe place. People are these people that influencers, e.g., the people that the client used to associate together with, the people that the client called friends. And therefore, the client is able to categorize people who shall be able to be regarded as close friends, casual friends, and those acquaintances, people who are, client is just aware of them, but he or she must not be able to continue associating with their behaviors like in the past, because those behaviors could or maybe contributed to the drug use lifestyle. And therefore, another aspect of being able to work with the SPPT formula is the decision-making skills as a life skill, whereby the client is supported through psychoeducation to categorize problems in three. Number one, for instance, what are these solvable issues? Is it biological issues? Are they maybe social issues? What are these unsolvable issues all along the life of the client? And therefore, the third one, also this aspect of what are these unimportant issues, concerns, or problems that still, bring stressors to the client in the past. And therefore, the client can now be able to sieve those things that are important and deal with those issues that are important. And in decision making, we now, as counselors, we can now be able to support them make what we call active and passive decision making. Active decisions are those decisions that come within after learning, how to, prevent relapse, and how to associate with the people that will support you. Passive decisions are those decisions or wishes of other people that can influence our life or our decisions or our thinking patterns. And therefore, the client is empowered to follow the active aspect of decision making other than the passive way of making decisions, the passive way of allowing other people to decide for them, especially on the negative part. And therefore, the client is now able to be more assertive and realize that it's me who has learned the effects that has made on my life. Upon or before this power, and some of these people that are positive treatment buddies, whereby they receive the client upon discharge. I don't know, Dorothy, can I summarize? Hello,
Yeah,
Dorothy?
can I summarize? We are 30 minutes past time. Yeah.
Thank you. Then before discharge, we allow the clients to have what we call social reintegration planning. Where will this client go? If you realize that the sponsors, the parents, and the significant others are talking about challenges that were in the past are still there, we discussed on the last aspect called uprooting, where will the client land and live a positive life. And by so doing, this client will be surrounded by positive people, even if it is shifting from the place where they used to live to a very safe place, and that aspect of relapse prevention can be achieved. The first month after discharge, the client is now also allowed to have what we call follow-up, at least 2 visits per month for the next 3 months. Then after 3 months, the client will be allowed to have a follow-up of a visit of once, where 1 per month visit after 3 months of the first discharge period. Thank you. Hello, Dorothy.
Thank you so much, Gabriel.
I'm sorry, Kirinyaga is having some network issues, but I'll share my work to this wall, the colleagues, through Katile. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think
Okay.
at this time, because I can't see any questions, we'll have 1 minute for each speaker to give the parting shot, and then we'll close the meeting. So we'll start with Mr. Anthony Nguru, if he's still on.
Thank you so much, Katile. I know there's been a lot of challenges with the online system, but I believe that we are resilient enough to go through the challenges and overcome them. I want to say thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about drug and drug abuse as a root cause of poverty in our community. It is our obligation as citizens, as leaders of this community, of our various communities, to talk about this and to, address it as the way it should. I just want to challenge everyone, especially those who have CBOs, NGOs, to not just talk about it on social media, but to go to the grassroots and tackle the root causes of poverty. Go to the organized forums in that you can be able to get the youth, partner with the local governments. We have the children's officers in various police stations, in various sub-counties. Partner with them, partner with the health organizations that are also in the sub-county level. And if you are able also to partner with the international organization, partner with them. But by all means, let us go to the community. By all means, let us go to the grassroots and talk about this vice. It needs to be addressed. If it's not now, soonest. Even now, when there is COVID, we can be able to do something to get them. I know it can be challenging for someone who is undergoing drugs to tap into Facebook or to tap into Zoom so that he can get this quality information. So it is up to us to actually go to them and speak about it. Otherwise, I want to thank you, and I want to thank all the speakers who are involved in bringing this information home. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony Guru, for such insightful words. I will welcome Mr. Brian Magwaro to give his parting shots.
Thank you very much. I think this is a very good opportunity. And for us, for me, I would like to recommend, like as Anthony has said, we continue working and helping other young people who are affected by alcohol as Blue Cross. Maybe I can say you can also follow our page and get to know more about what we do, our life skills programs. We know maybe due to Corona, even after Corona, we'll be able to get an opportunity to engage. And like I said, the life skills manual that we developed together with NACADA to help facilitate help prevent young people from getting into alcohol and substance abuse. It's a great program that we would like also to learn from each other. I've seen members from ISAP, I've seen WFAD members. So let's continue to follow each other, and we see people in need. Let's help them. Our page, it's Blue Cross Youth Center, but it's at Blue Cross Kisumu. Our Twitter handle is at Blue Cross Kisumu, and our Instagram, it's at Blue Cross Kisumu. You'll be able to get more. We are running a campaign now on prevention by priority, where we are getting different celebrities, different people, just talking about issues of alcohol and drug addiction. If you use hashtag prevention by priority, you'll be able to see our Kenyan artists, our celebrities, able to talk to people about drug abuse and COVID-19. Thank you. This was a wonderful program, and we hope to engage more.
Thank you, Mr. Brian Magwaro from Blue Cross. I welcome Miss Janny Marangu to give us a parting shot.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity. I want to tell each and every one of us to be vigilant, to be our sisters, brothers, and children's keeper. These are tough times, especially now that we have Corona and our children out here. Experimentation is going on right now. But there's still hope for those who are in drugs already. And those who have not yet experimented, I will pray and beg them not to experiment. But there's still hope. Let's do our bits. Let's go out there and be advocates and give information. And I believe together we shall overcome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Johnny. I welcome Mr. Edwin Kibe to give your parting shots.
Thank you very much for this another opportunity. First and foremost is to appreciate the participation that I've had with you guys. You've been really supportive, you've delivered, and maybe just 4 points to insist on. First one is to remind ourselves that we are the people who know that addiction is a disease. Let's make it known even to the people on the grassroots, people in the villages. Let's stop stigma. That is bullet number one, that addiction is a disease and that we should stop stigma. Number two, I would urge all of us to know that it begins with me. We take the very first step of being the change that you want to be, that you want to see. Take it as a personal responsibility. It begins with you. If you look at the administration system in Kenya, and you decide that these will be taken care of by the government, these will be taken care of by the parents, no, be the change that you want to see. Lastly, I would want to urge Katile and the team and the brains behind this platform to make more, many more. I have seen it's only because of the interest of time. If we're given an opportunity, we'll talk and talk more about it. And this is the only remaining platform whereby you can reach as many people as possible as you can. I have seen we have people from US, we have people from Nepal, we have people from all over the world, and we can spread the word very fast, and it reaches to the grassroots. Finally, I wish to thank all of you. We are in Thika, an organization called Uhai Center. Uhai Center, you can find us at www.uhaicenter.org, and are very active on Facebook, Kibe Edwin Gitau. You follow me and you'll see I am a very regular and a very active member on Facebook. Thank you very much. May God bless our efforts. Be blessed.
May God bless you too. So, Dorothy, you can give your parting shot in absentia of Elisha.
I take this opportunity to thank you for considering Effa, the coach, that is Elisha Fred, in his absentia. As I said, I work alongside him. Fred is a motivational speaker, is a transformational speaker, is a life coach, is a family coach. And of course, he does a program with KBC TV every Monday morning on family matters. And so you can tune in every Monday from 9 to 10, but sometimes from 8 to 9. Morning, Good Morning Kenya with KBC TV. And so just to thank everyone who has participated and given their input, just to encourage you for more partnerships. Thank you, Katile, for the thoughts, and every person that was behind this program, for putting together and for mobilizing expertise to come and share and to be a source of encouragement to people that are struggling in this area. And of course, what I would encourage everyone that is in this forum is, when we all work together and put in, energy together, no one will be left behind. And so it is important for us to, be the support system to our children, to our society, so that they can, get the change that they are looking for. And even, of course, others who are not really looking for change, it is us to start the initiative and, we approach them and help them to get out of this and let them know the disadvantages. And of course, I will encourage us because, you realize with our students, the challenge is not really our students, but there is the root cause, which is our parents or us as parents. And so as we work with the students, we also need to address the issues from the root cause, which is, family. And so we should not leave out the family, even as we work with the young people, because as much as we put, synergy from that area, we do not address the issues. So I'll remind everyone, as we work with young people and the youth, let us also work hand in hand with the families so that they can be able to give the support that is needed so that our children can get out of drugs and, get to understand and know the reality and the effects of drugs and substance abuse, because some of them are not aware. They just take them for fun and, believe in the myths, and they do not have the truths about all about drugs and substance abuse. So thank you so much for this, opportunity on behalf of Fred.
Thank you, Dorothy. I think with that, if there's no question from the audience, we can end the session then. For the recordings and for the presentation, we'll send them via email. For everyone who has registered, we'll send them tomorrow. After tomorrow's session, we'll send every recording from Monday to Sunday. And then if you have any query or maybe you want to approach any of the speakers, maybe you can still email us. We'll get you in touch with them. Thank you all for joining, and for those who are watching us in Facebook Live, like Wycliffe Owino, Isaac Maweo, Lawrence Odoyo, and many others, we thank you for following us. With that, I think we can end the session. Thank you all for joining. Let's meet tomorrow for a session on COVID-19. Have a good night, all of you. Bye. Thank you, Brian, for sharing. Yeah.